Thank you. I have a video.
And the Oscar goes to...
Thank you to the Academy, thank you to Sideshow and Janus, thank you to Blender, thank you to my mom and dad, thank you to my cats and dogs. I'm really moved by the warm reception our film has had, and I hope that it will open doors to independent animation filmmakers around the world. We are very inspired and we hope to be back soon.
Give a shout out to the Blender community for this amazing work. Nowadays, when I do my job at Blender, I take care of a lot of different things. Like mostly the way I explain it is I try to facilitate, to help things to happen, help people to work together. Sometimes it's pretty high level and detached from the hands-on processes. There's one little thing that I like still to do, which is very hands-on, which is put together these reels. When we have a release of Blender every once in a while, just reaching out to people, like I see cool work on social media, and then I send them a DM. I was like, can I put your stuff in the reel? And everybody's so friendly and positive usually, and they say, yeah, you can feature my work, I love it, it's an honor. And I'm like, it's an honor that you do this amazing stuff with Blender. So it is always so rewarding and so fulfilling to see it, and you can really get a feeling of what Blender is capable of and what it's the different uses that it can find. And so to me, it's really, you will hear the word community a lot in this presentation. This is what it is all about. And this session is a little bit about open source innovation as well. So how do you keep a popular open source project from collapsing onto itself while keeping relevant in the decades to come? And Sergey Sharabin, he's the head of development at Blender. He said, well, if you're wondering how to stay relevant, you're probably irrelevant already, and you should be terminated. But he's Eastern European talk for saying, okay, you got this, keep trying, buddy. So Blender is fairly well known today as it's an excellent free and open source 3D creation tool. And this is how it looks like nowadays. This is how you can visualize things in the tool, and this is how you can build stuff. And it's been around for a couple of decades. What you see here is some footage of the film Flow. So who has seen this film in the room? So a few people are familiar, almost half of the people. So it's essentially an independent animated feature film. It won an Oscar earlier this year. It got a huge reaction worldwide. The story really resonated, mostly because there is a cat in it, there is no dialogue in it. So it's just like there is an audience for that apparently, and it was entirely made with Blender, and it made its way into the Blender splash screen. It was done by a very small team, primarily lit and rendered, and also kind of built from the ground up by director Gintz. He also has cats besides the two dogs, and it's very interesting. Like the next film he's working on, he's also using Blender for it. And to me, this picture kind of shows a little bit something that is interesting about Blender. It can be you, your laptop, somewhere on a plane, and you just have Blender, and you can be creative and you can do stuff. And I think that is very, very cool. So a couple of highlights about what Blender is used for at this point. Okay, film, you got it. Like recently we had a Blender conference. We had a talk about how Sonic 3, like multi-billion-dollar blockbuster, used Blender for some of the post phase, but even for some of the final renders. More independent fields, but also again VFX blockbusters like How to Train Your Dragon. They do the visual development using Blender at major studios like Framestore. TV series, dozens of them, but also much more using all sorts of sectors. We try to keep track of these stories on the Blender.org website. So we have product design, so you can create high-fidelity digital mockups of products that are going to get built, because it's much cheaper to do that digitally than to just prototype everything all the time. The whole concept of digital twins still in 2025 is making its ways in different industries, and Blender is like really there. You have game asset creation, even like very popular title, indie titles, huge studios, but also more niche things like forensics, reconstructions, and journalism, or machine learning and synthetic data training. So companies like Microsoft and Google, they use Blender to build models, environments, to train their machine learning models and to their computer vision systems. So Microsoft, for example, did that with HoloLens. They built a library of thousands of different hands that they could then pose and use a system to train on hand gesture recognition with all sorts of skins and like configurations to make the thing recognizable and understandable by the systems. Or another example is here with train tracks. So computer vision system that is built to detect obstacles on the train tracks. You don't want to put a tree on the train tracks and then see what happens. You probably know what happens. So you just want to simulate it. You just want to create images that teach the system what it is good or bad about it. And more general research. So this is a neural motion rig. So this is a system that is being researched at Disney Animation. And it's about using machine learning for improving or augmenting animation posing. And they use Blender as a sandbox for testing and doing the research, because Blender is available for everyone, so you can do these kind of things. And more about research, like this is a neuroscientific data visualization. Again, this is topics from Blender Conference 2025. So you have like, data, I/O, and visualization, again, like from the medical field. You have historical reconstructions. And this one in particular is something that I love. It's a historic reconstruction by Thomas Cole. So it's the Tenochtitlan. It's the capital of the Aztec Empire, disappeared 500 years ago. So it's a huge city made on a floating island on a lake. And this is actually the foundation of Mexico City. And not much remains. But to me, what you can see from this picture is that Blender really helps you to get a sense of this world and learn something about it that would not be possible otherwise. Automotive industry. Blender is used there, and for especially the conceptualization, the early designs, and getting into prototyping. There's a quote that I find very interesting about this, which is that car design benefits more and more from individuals and companies that can build their own tools. And having a software like Blender that can be customized and tweaked to fit these specific needs without having to be changed and built again from the ground up, that's very powerful. So Blender is more than software. So before we dive in like that, I think it's very important to take this away. That it's a community project, and it's coordinated primarily by the Blender Foundation, and it's primarily funded by donations. And at the core, of course, there is the software. And thousands of people contribute to this software, and it's used by millions of people regularly. But how does it work? So what does this Blender thing work? Not like practical, but like what kind of work is needed to make a project like Blender happen? And I understand that this is obvious to contributors or people that are familiar with maybe open source, but it may not be obvious for everyone. So I want to share some pictures so that we get in the same page. Again, so we start with the Blender project itself, so it's the heart of everything. And there are a few actors around it, so we can see the roles. So we have the makers. There are people who are doing the work. So designers, developers, technical artists, they actually do stuff, they develop things. And when you reach a certain size, it helps to have some coordination. People that have like a slightly bigger picture and they can facilitate these processes. So development coordinators, project leads, and module owners. And next to them, there is more strategic vision, more leadership and empowerment. So to make sure that there is a more coherent direction where everybody goes. And that's a little bit part of my job, what I do. And in practice, how does that look like? Well, Blender has a development website and a whole network of websites where communication and coordination happens, with a lot of emphasis on trying to manage a lot of things ourselves, because that's also very important. There is a developer portal that is meant to explain people how to get onboarded and get started with development. And there is a developer documentation with information more specific. How do you build Blender? How do you figure out where the different things are? There is a code blog, a development blog, where we share design ideas and updates. There is a main project portal where the issues are handled, PRs are being reviewed, etc. There is a development talk forum, so a place where people can talk about development and talk about ideas. We have a chat. So this is like Slack, yeah? But it's open and public by default. We really try to put zero effort into joining and following a conversation. If you want to join, it's like a couple of clicks, but you should really be able to see transparently, as easily as possible, as much information as you can. Blender is organized in modules. So these are areas of interest that somewhat reflect the structure of the software itself. These are more general top-level modules. So there are like 5 modules that cover different parts, and then you have like more the feature modules. So they have their own module owners. There is an agenda. They have public meetings, reporting activities. So modules are basically the gateway to get involved in the project. Usually, it's one of the best ways, because you say, "Oh, I'm interested in this area." Okay, so then you can find which one is the module that kind of more closely matches that, and then you can actually find people as quickly as possible that can help you out. They can guide you, they can answer questions, they can give you more tips on how to get involved further. What could be the next step? Because that's the idea, right? To connect to people as quickly as possible. What kind of, again, talking about the work, what kind of work happens in Blender? So there are 2 types of work. One of them is module work. So is this maintenance and making sure that things keep working within the scope of those modules. And then there are the projects. Projects are more overarching across the modules, and they require collaboration, they require more design work, and they usually have a more complex execution, and they require a different time span. And these projects, they follow a roadmap. So Blender has a roadmap and a vision, and something like on a product level, it's a little bit of, again, like my job, but together with a lot of people to coordinate this and make sure that we do the right contributions to steer it in the right direction. But we are not going to talk about that, of course, here. But I just want to make sure that it's essential for product work to have an idea of where you want to go. And the roadmap for me means also having dreams, having a vision of where the amazing things are, and you go to the edge of your imagination with what is possible, but then also you have to deal with the reality and the resources that you have, the skills that you have available, and there is plenty of information on that roadmap process online. So again, we don't need to talk about that right now, but who pays for all this? How do we make this happen? So there is individual funding. We do campaigns like the Code Quest. We have a development fund platform, which is a platform to collect one-time and recurring donations. We do over 10,000 individual donations every year. We also do campaigns. So I want to tell you a fun story about a campaign and in general how fundraising with the community works. Because again, getting individuals to understand, okay, you can do your part to support the project. So this was last year. We did get 2% of the people that are actively using Blender to support, because currently it's 1%. So let's try to make it 2. And we do our campaign, and this is a chart that shows, okay, there's a little bump, you see, and that's the 2-3x the amount of donations. So great job, doing very well. And then we went on Christmas holidays because it was the end of the year. And during that, something happened. And we're like, wow, what is going on? This is even better. So what did we do? Actually, it turns out that somebody made a viral video online. So based on content that we published before, Blender conference content, somebody said, is Blender in financial trouble? How, this is a very dramatic, clickbaity kind of content, but somehow it did trigger a lot of attention and a lot of people, and it kind of engaged with a different audience. We're feeling a little bit bad about it because it's oh man, I'm not doing a good enough job at making sure that people feel compelled to donate. But at the same time, I don't think the Blender YouTube channel could publish this video, right? It could say your fault. I don't think that would work very well. So this is to say that sometimes unexpected things also come from the community, and it's important to build and to make official communication available and clear to everyone, and then people can build even their own narratives around it, and you can get these unexpected and very good results. On the other side, you have also more corporate and industry funding, and we have a lot of tech companies that support Blender at different tiers, at different levels. These are probably some brands that you know, and you see automotive companies even, you see a game company, you see small, medium studios, industrial design companies. So it's kind of a variety of organizations. And in this, on this topic, I do want to briefly touch upon the content versus technology dichotomy, which is very often companies, especially that are working in creativity, say for example studios, they have still a tendency to think that the competitive advantage is within the technology. Whereas what we always advocate for is that is about your people, is about your content, is about what you make. And technology, the more you share, the better it is for everyone, because you obviously build stronger tools and you reduce the maintenance burden for everyone. And this is starting to get there, and some organizations understand, and they see that open source is a great vehicle to make that possible. Finally, there is institutional funding. So in these palaces with gold ceilings that you find in Brussels, there are very often European Union level institutional events. And I try to get connected with like legislators and regulators to ensure that more funding goes towards free and open source software. And there is a better understanding of that process, and that the European agenda for the years to come takes that into account. It's a very long-term investment, but it is something that we are trying to work on because it's a good complementary source of funding for open source. What is the state of Blender today? Well, Blender is a very mature project. It's been around for, again, as we said, 20 plus years. I want to show you like some website stats from to give you a picture. So this is the traffic of the past few years. You see it goes up. Okay, that's nice. Yearly downloads, like many millions, like 20 plus million downloads. So this is distributed across the different main sources where we distribute Blender. So one is blender.org, then you have Steam and Windows Store. And you can see that Steam is really a fraction, yeah? So maybe you didn't even know. Instead of playing a game on Steam, you can actually download Blender and use it there. So for blender.org, we don't really collect a lot of stats about what's going on there. So, but on Steam, we do, because Steam does. So we have access to that. So you can see that on Steam, so for a fraction of the users, so it's like 2 million versus 20, there are like approximately 70,000 people that are using Blender daily on Steam, and like peak concurrent is around 10,000. So like almost at any given moment of the day, you have to think that on Steam, there are people using Blender, and it's like 10,000 of them. Instead of playing games, instead of having fun, instead of being outside, how does that work? I don't know. And these I also find interesting, the usage by region, that you can see a very even distribution between US, Russia, and China. They're all 15% of the users of Blender on the Steam platform again. On the Blender side of things, we have we have one way of kind of getting a picture of how many people are using the project, which is the extensions users. So Blender has a extensions platform where you can download add-ons. And it's a feature that you can opt in to. So not everybody does, but if you do, the moment when you launch Blender, at least once per day, if you launch Blender on that day, we do check if there are updates for you and if there is like some security updates or things like that. And through that system, we get an idea if somebody is actually launching Blender on that day. So we can collect some sort of analytics that give you a sense of what's the Blender use over time. And so basically it looks like there are 200,000 people that every day launch Blender at least once. And what are these people doing? We don't know. But it's interesting to see that you have those little spikes. So those look like weekdays. So these are like days of the week. So you see that 5 days out of 7, there is like more usage. It almost looks like people are using Blender professionally. That's like what we think we get from this chart. And also you have other things like, for example, that green color there, or sorry, the blue color, it shows like the long-term support releases that are versions of Blender that are used like for a longer period of time, like if you have a project and they keep getting support. I'll talk about this in a second. One final chart, my favorite chart about Blender, that shows like the support time, the timings in Blender. So this is the time that it takes to get a response from an issue. So in yellow, you see that within a day, like 90% of the issues that you report, you get an answer. So like at least you get some form of acknowledgement. And in, within like a week or so, like more than half of the issues get actually solved. This is to me a manifestation of the power of having a public, open issue tracker where people can actually see what is going on in your project. They can participate, and the benefit of having that visible and accessible for everyone. We put a lot of effort in this topic of the stability and having reliable software. We do 3 releases per year, and one of which is called LTS, long-term support, which basically gets bug fixes and security fixes for a period of 2 years. And the amount of effort that goes into one LTS release is something like this, is hundreds and hundreds of things over time. And this is, like, again, very important to give people a reliable piece of software they can use in production. All this process that I described is publicly documented. The foundation does annual reporting, and we describe in detail all the activities, giving insight in the finances and the people and many other things. The year report for 24 is now out. You can see it on blender.org. How does this stake against the topic of innovation? So how do you do this? Because you have like all these things, and like the more popular a project becomes, the more you tend to become conservative and risk averse. So how do you make it, and what is innovation? So like, let's actually look at some examples. So this is called clay pencil, and this was not AI. This is geometry nodes. It's generative content, and it's built upon 2 systems that exist in Blender. One is called geometry nodes, which is a generative procedural geometry system, and grease pencil, which is a 2D, 3D drawing system that is available in Blender. This is built by Daniel M. Lara and other contributors, and this shows how a technical artist, without actual programming, using visual programming, using a node-based system, can actually build a set of tools that then, in the hand of an artist, allow them to create something that is visually unique. And it's a very, the interesting thing about this is that this gives an artist control. And this, I think it's a very important topic to keep in mind, especially in the age when there is a lot of ideas that, okay, you type something in a prompt and you get something out. The idea that you can actually build tools that are in the hands of people and they know exactly what they're doing, they're putting their stroke there and they get what they want. And then you can get something that is completely unpredictable and super fun to see. On the other side of the spectrum, you also do have the thing that you type in the prompt, and then you have an NCP that is driving Blender and is doing stuff for you. Like, this kind of innovation happens in the community as well. And on the topic of AI, one thing that I think of is also interesting. People have been building Confi UI integrations. So again, like third-party system, you can use Blender to hook up to those. And that's like a part where I think there is a lot of potential for exploring how building things, and then like you can bridge some of the gaps by using machine learning systems that are like huge, massive ethical implications of working with these models, but it is something that it is happening today, so it's not something that we can simply ignore. And finally, I want to show you one more.
What's this? An Apple
example of
Pencil?
innovation.
Hey,
There should be sound.
is this yours? Any chance?
Thank you so much.
Otherwise, I can enact it.
What are you doing
Actually, the
here?
2 people
I'm
who are
just
in the
using
video,
Blender
they are actually
on
here in the room. They could almost voice themselves. So it's like, wow, no way. Wow, so it's like he's drawing something. Oh, there you go.
Holy, is that free?
Oh yeah, it's free and open source, just like Blender. You can know to learn more about this on code.blender.org.
Super nice. Thank you so much. You're holding it upside down.
Marketing geniuses at work. So there was lots of excitement for this release. So this was a sneak peek of working on bringing Blender on a tablet. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, I wanted to actually make it more prominent. There is, Penpot was used to do the mockups for this, because of course, like Blender is used, Penpot is used the Blender to do a lot of prototyping and design for Blender. That's also why we are here, right? And we know each other for a few years. And you get a lot of excitement, a great response globally to the project. But then at the same time, you go to the Blender forums, and then you see this. And there are lots of questions and even criticism on the choice of doing this kind of stuff. Like, why are you working on the iPad? Why aren't you doing Android? Why aren't you improving the texture painting? Why aren't you fixing my bug, the only bug that I care about, the only bug that I have? And why are you doing everything else? And it is very valid and it's very important to acknowledge this. And we definitely need to have a better way to contextualize this kind of innovations. So one of the ideas to do that is to establish something like a Blender lab. So it's a safe space for innovation, and label these projects as experiments and remove the pressure from the releases, give space to everyone to play around and keep things public. And this is not a novel concept in Blender. We've been talking about this for a few years, but now we're actually moving forward and making it, and there are going to be more updates and more practical examples of what this lab actually becomes. So I want to wrap this up by saying that in the end, though, the key is always with people. So it's like no matter the technology and no matter the disruption, it's always about enabling people to work together. And that's also why we are here, and that's why it's important that we keep talking to each other. Thank you very much.